Good evening. Hope you've had a magnificent Monday. Mia Gradney here live at the KHOU 11 studios with our annual back to school Q&A with area superintendents. New week, new start, new superintendent. You know, KHOU 11 is proud to be your education station. We hope we can be a help by offering this connection and conversation with your superintendent. Spring ISD, which just happens to be home to my alma mater, Spring High School, welcomes students a week from tomorrow on August 16th. All students will return to all campuses by the 16th. And joining us now is Superintendent Dr. Lupita Hinojosa, along with Spring ISD Chief of Police Kenneth Culbreath. Good evening and welcome to you both. It's good to have you.
Good evening. And it's so exciting to be here. And you're right, Mia. It's once a lion, always a lion.
This is so true. Spring proud here. I am always happy to support Spring High School as well. And hello there, Chief Culbreath.
Hello, how are you doing? And again, welcome back to our spring alumni.
Thank you for the warm welcome. Well, this is special to me because I want to help serve and answer questions from those spring parents out there. And again, reminding everyone that all students will return to campus in Spring ISD on August 16th. And we hope to cover a lot of ground tonight and a lot of your questions in the next half hour. Many of you have already submitted questions when you took part in the KHOU 11 Back to School survey. And we're still taking your questions. No worries here. You're thinking, I didn't do the survey. No problem. You can text your questions to 713-526-1111. With that, let's get started with a question from a parent. Jose Jaime Gutierrez says his child's security is his biggest concern. And I have to tell you, he is not alone. The majority of our back to school survey questions are security related. Chief Culbreath, Superintendent Hinojosa, it's been a couple of months. What has Spring ISD done to further ensure safety and security on its campuses?
Well, listen, I'm a parent sorry.
No, go ahead, Chief. I was just going to say to Mr. Gutierrez and the importance of safety for us here in Spring ISD. And that's why you're also on the call, because it is our number one priority. To all of our parents that are watching, especially Mr. Gutierrez, please know that it is our priority. And Chief, I'd like to let you talk a little bit about all the work that we've done since 2016.
Right. Well, thank you, Dr. Hinojosa. That's a really important question as we start school. Listen, I'm a father and also the husband of an educator. So my heart is not only with our kids here, but also as a family man. And so Spring has a long history of devoting itself to safety. In 2016, we started the work in our last bond and we're carrying it through. We're finishing some projects that were completely done then. And we have systems in place now that we've only enhances our ability to continue to provide a service model of safety and security for our campuses. We have some security features that we put in place since 2016 and infrastructure that has allowed us to really strengthen our ability to respond to any type of incident, but specifically an active shooter.
I know it's difficult because you don't ever want to tip someone off to exactly what you are doing, but you talked about infrastructure there and making changes and upgrading there. Can you talk about loosely what some of that involves and what it is?
Yeah, sure. Without giving too much of our plans and our details out, we've invested some money into our technology component. If you think about some of the opportunities that our staff would have, there's an emergency panic button that we have on all of our campuses that will allow, if there were the need for them to lock the campus down, they press the button, it completely locks the doors. And that was something that was put in with the last bond. And we've continually increased the measures and the technology around that to secure the campuses. So that allows administrator or someone at the front office to press the button. It locks the doors. It sends a response to law enforcement, to our team, and to our partners that something is going on campus that they need our response for. But we also have camera systems that allows us to look into the campuses and actually have real-time views so we can respond with appropriate action into the appropriate location.
When you say it locks the doors, that panic button, are we talking about all exterior doors of the school?
Exterior doors and some of our interior doors have the electronic system on it, so it allows us to lock some of those as well.
Got it. A follow-up security question here. Stacy Baptiste asked about armed officers. Are they on campus at all Spring ISD schools? If not, she asks, how will the district ensure student safety?
Yeah, so we have police officers that are responsible for campus administration. So they're on campus and they're there to partner with our campus administrators. We also have a patrol division and a detective division, and their responsibilities is to add an extra layer of support to those campuses and those communities. So it's overlaid with those responses, and we feel very confident by how we have our patrol overlaid on top of our campus response that we will be a secure district and at least the ability to respond as quickly as possible.
Maria says every school needs police at the front door. For those officers on campus, how are they positioned to answer her question?
Yeah, we elect not to always keep them at the front door. That's probably not a tactic that allows us to keep the campus as secure. There's multiple points to get into a campus, and there's a lot of, when you open and close campuses, as a parent, dropping kids off, having kids picked up, dropping meds off, books, and there's a lot of moving parts. So we ask our officers to randomly be in strategic places. We have several locations that are high traffic areas, and so we will try and place them there at random times just so that no one knows their constant system.
And how many armed officers do you have in the district total?
So we're staffed for 65, but we have actually over about 75 full-time staff that's dedicated to the mission of keeping our campuses safe. So in addition to the police officers, we have other staff that also helps out with that process.
And I know you talked about the panic alert system that you have there on campuses where anyone can press that button. Let's talk about outside of the actual building itself and the physical perimeter security. What does that look like? Is there fencing at all Spring ISD schools?
So we have some semblance of fencing on property. Not all of our properties have what we call hardening, have the ability to be totally encased. That is something that we are exploring into some options moving forward in the future. Most of those campuses that do not have fencing around it, we are increasing our patrols for those areas.
And adding to this conversation, we had a parent with a specific observation and ask. They said that their school backs up to apartments and the residents are always jumping the fence and walking through the school grounds while children are at recess. They ask what is being done about this. Unfortunately, they didn't name a specific school, but I wanted you to, Chief Culbreath, if you could speak to how something like this would be handled. They're saying that people are basically walking through school grounds while children are there at the school.
So last year, before school was out last year, we had an opportunity to meet with our community partners in addition to the school-based team. So we have a cross-collaborative team that we sat down with to look at options to mitigate and reduce any issues that we would have. And I believe I may have those campuses identified already. We're also working with the operations team. They're getting quotes, and we're trying to shore up those campuses to make sure that we have the proper fencing around it. They're working with our community partners, those apartment complexes. So they also allow us some feedback so they can direct their patrons to other avenues.
I see. If you're just joining us, we're taking your questions both from our survey and here live. We have Dr. Lupita Hinojosa, the superintendent of Spring ISD, and graciously joining us and answering your questions as well is Spring ISD Police Chief Kenneth Culbreath. Thank you so much. Going to keep those questions going because boy, do they have them to ask. Alexis McCarty asked, why are there no electronic monitors at the entrances of school? And why is there no police presence during the school day at every grade school? So let's start with her first question, asking about electronic monitors at the entrances of schools. I'm going to assume that she's maybe perhaps talking about infrastructure and devices to detect maybe a weapon. I wasn't quite sure what she was alluding to, but can you speak to that for us, please?
Yeah, sure. So we do have metal detectors on some of our campuses. The campuses that we don't, we do have other mechanisms that I would, in technology that I would not want to bring up right now, but we do have that available that we do monitor those entrances and from remote and on-campus locations that we monitor those entrances and exits. So we do have safety measures in place, and there's a plan for that. Again, we also overlay our patrol officers in addition to some of our other central office staff and the police department to support those campuses and make sure that we're increasing the activity of police on those campuses.
I see. And then her follow-up question was, why is there no police presence during the school day at every grade school? We know within some districts we have officers dedicated to your high schools and middle schools, but not always at the elementary school level. What's the lay of the land in Spring ISD when it comes to officers being dispatched and positioned at schools?
So for spring, it hasn't been, up until this past summer, it hasn't been something that has been high on the radar because of how our patrol model and our service model to the campus. We have, in addition to our police response, that we have patrol officers and supervisors that they have a responsibility to check by the campuses throughout their shift. We also have some community-based, our Dream Makers program. And so that allows us to go on campuses with community-based programs to cycle in more officers in a non-typical police fashion. So we're trying to touch kids and grow kids and build trust with them. And so those activities are constantly going. I spoke to a teacher just last night about the same question, and she alluded to me that on her campus, she saw sufficient amount of police officers in and out of her campus last year, and she's on an elementary campus. And so I was proud to hear that, and we have plans to increase the volume of that this school year.
Another parent question talking about the school buildings and the safety there. They want to know, are there locks on all classroom doors, and how often are those checked?
There are locks on all classroom doors. We completed that just prior to school opening. We completed that audit. We do have functioning locks on every single one of our doors. The doors are checked, we could say daily, by the campus staff that are opening and closing the doors. We have an operations team that they have a dedicated group that's part of their weekly responsibility. And then we've overlaid that with our patrolmen and our campus officers who are also on campus. So we try to have a check and balance just to make sure that we're conducting those checks as frequently as possible.
You're doing the checks. Are teachers, are educators required to keep those classroom doors locked? What's the policy there?
Yes, our policy is to keep the door. Sorry, yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, Chief, definitely.
No, our policy is to keep the classroom doors locked during instruction. Obviously, during transition periods, they're going to be open as they're letting their students in and out. But during instructional time, we are asking all staff, and it's been a policy here in Spring for some time, to make sure that all interior doors are locked and our exterior doors remain closed and locked as well.
Dr. Hinojosa, do you have in Spring ISD any classrooms that are open air classrooms, meaning there aren't physical doors on the classrooms? Once upon a time, that was the case inside your schools. What about in Spring ISD today in 2022?
Yes. So no, that's not the concept that is being implemented. We have self-contained classrooms. You will see sometimes pull-outs saying children coming outside. We have little areas where they can gather and talk, but all of our classrooms are self-contained. Every single classroom has an operable door that does lock. And as Chief said, it has been our policy here in Spring ISD for all classroom doors to be locked. And of course, it's the responsibility of our principals to, make the rounds and make sure that those doors remain locked. And then, of course, on the outside, the perimeter doors, we have access control on every single door, so they are also automatically locked. And as Chief said, if we needed to lock a school down, we do have the system to be able to automatically lock the entire building. And then, of course, our police department is monitoring that through our cameras.
I see. We've talked so much about security and this being the #1 concern for parents, not just in Spring ISD, but really all across the city of Houston and the greater city of Houston. But If parents are concerned and anxious, oftentimes that trickles down to their children. And we know these are just emotionally difficult times. What supports do you have available to those students who are anxious about school and their safety, especially in the wake of Uvalde?
Mm-hmm. And that's very real. As Chief was saying, as a parent, that's your priority. And I want our parents that are viewing tonight to know that that is our number one priority. We know, nationwide, this is a huge concern. And so first and foremost, as you stated, we're coming back to school next Tuesday, but currently we're having meet the teacher days. We're having lots of opportunities for our parents to come on onto the campus and meet the teachers. And most importantly, meet our counselors. At every building and every school in Spring ISD, we have counselors. District-wide, we also have a mental health department. And so what we've been working on is to first and foremost, work with our teachers to understand when students are in crisis, when they're experiencing trauma. We want to be able to have our counselors well prepared and our teachers well prepared to identify that, and then to be able to provide those services, whether it's on campus to have sessions with our students, or we are also in partnership with other agencies that can provide the support. But to our parents, it's very real. So when your child says, I'm scared, Mom, I'm worried, what if it happens here in spring? Don't negate that, make sure and validate that, and then make an appointment or come up to our school. Like I said, we're having all of our teachers meet and greets this week, and then some will also happen on Monday. But give your child the opportunity to come to the school, visit the campus, tour the building, and talk to the teachers and the staff there to ease those nerves, because they're real and they're normal.
Yeah. Keep that open line of communication, especially when the child is feeling anxious. Want to get to another question. This is about safety, but this time in regards to on the school bus. A parent asked, what will you do to ensure the safety of students while on the school bus and also while waiting for the school bus?
And I know Chief can talk about that, but I'll tell you that last year we definitely made it a priority, and that will continue this year. Our chief talked about the patrol officers that are out not only around our schools, but most importantly in the community and at the bus stops, because we know that oftentimes those can be also just as dangerous, as well as getting on the bus. You'll see our bus drivers that have been trained. One of the things that we ask all of our students is to get in line. And so all of our students will also be issued their ID card. And so before a student can get on the bus, we ask them to show their ID card. And that way we know that it is one of our students that are coming on our bus. And it's, for us, it's another layer of security to know as they scan their cards that which student has gotten on the bus. And then, of course, to be able to ensure that they get off at school and at the end of the day at the correct bus stop. But Chief, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about the training and all the monitoring that the officers did last year and will continue this school year.
Yes, ma'am, I sure will. We, as Dr. Hinojosa, you already touched on all the points. We recently met with our transportation team just today, as a matter of fact, and we went over our strategic enforcement plan for them to provide support at bus stops and in all the pathways as they're leaving campuses and back to communities. So we're going to continue that this year. And again, we expect to increase the volume of that now that we understand how to deploy both in the field and also in partnership with our communications, the transportation team. And so as we're working through with them, we have an opportunity to find hotspots or where there's traffic issues we can help move traffic through, and just touch bus stops when kids are being kids. And so sometimes they need some mentoring, and we're definitely can touch bus stops to help out with that as well.
All right. right, Chief Culbreath and Superintendent Hinojosa with answers to your questions. A reminder again to text your questions to 713-526-1111. Let's talk lunch now. We've received so many questions about school lunches. We know times are tough with inflation for our families. Last year, lunches were free per a federal program in COVID. How will the lunch program work this year, Dr. Hinojosa?
Sure, and we truly understand. In Spring ISD, we have our free breakfast for all, so all students receive breakfast free. Also, we encourage our parents as they're updating their records, when they go online, as they're updating their child's records, to go ahead and put all of their information, because at that same time, they can reapply for their free or their reduced lunch meal. Same thing for our parents that are bringing students for the first time to Spring. No need to worry. Right there on the same link, you'll have the opportunity to once again apply, submit all your information, and we'll be able to get back with you to ensure that your child has a meal at campus.
I see. And with applying, the process, a lot of things have changed for individual families out there. What if they're concerned, I don't know if we're eligible or not? Are you encouraging them to go ahead and just apply regardless?
Absolutely. For us, it's really important. And here in Spring ISD, a little over 87% of our students qualify for free or reduced lunch. And so I invite all parents, number one, you won't be able to skip that link. We're going to make sure that you apply before you go on to the next level. Make sure that you apply. And, for you, it may take, an extra click, but for your child, it's really important so that we can make sure and get their meals to them.
And you said Spring ISD. I want to point that out again because I haven't heard that. Spring ISD provides free breakfast to all students, regardless.
All students, regardless. You come to school in the morning, you can either pick it up in the cafeteria. We have a kiosk. And for our elementary kiddos, we actually bring them into the classroom and they get to have breakfast in the classroom while the teacher reads a story and they get organized for the day.
Making sure they have a good start to the day there with breakfast. Wonderful. Still taking your questions here, 713-526-1111. We're going to cover a lot of ground here in these next 7 minutes. Want to talk about there's a nationwide teacher shortage. We're asking all our local districts, where do they stand? How are you doing with the number of teachers? Do you have enough for the school year?
Mia, we're actually doing really good. I have to thank our community, thank everyone out there. I'll tell you, at this time, we're about a week away from the start of school, and we're down to a little less than 114 vacancies, classroom teacher vacancies. And I'll tell you, we've never been that close before. And so I'm really proud and excited for our board that we're one of the first boards that voted a teacher salary increase back in March. So our teachers, first year teachers, make about $60,500. And teachers that are 10 to 15 years of experience are making much more than that. So proud of our board to take that bold step moving forward. We also offered retention stipends for the teachers to return. And I'll tell you, this Wednesday, they'll be getting their first stipend for coming back. And then last but not least, I have to tell you, we are partnering with Prairie View A&M as well as Harris County Department of Ed, where we are growing our own teachers. We have staff in our district that already have a bachelor's degree, and all that they needed was a teacher certification. So in Spring ISD, we are paying for our teachers to get their teacher certification. And so many people have stepped up and stepped in and said, I want to be a teacher. I want to be a teacher in Spring ISD. So we're very close to be fully staffed for our first day of school.
Good to hear. Another parent asked, how are you making sure schools are staffed to avoid split classes? I know you said you're down missing about 100 teachers or in need of 100 teachers. Will you have to even think about splitting classes at this point? Sounds like you're pretty close.
We are very close. And I understand what that parent was saying, because as you know, last year it was tough. I mean, we had a lot of teachers that were out ill. We had a lot of teachers that chose midway through the year, to stay home. So we did have to split classrooms, students on a daily basis. And our plan is not to do that. Our goal is to start with a teacher in every classroom on day one. And so we should not see, parents, you should not see all that movement that you saw last year. Again, we have, gone far to search for our teachers, and we're very pleased that we are almost there.
Yeah. How will you fill the gap for those vacancies that you do have in the classroom?
So that's one of the things that we are now addressing. I'll tell you, we are looking for what we call substitutes or long-term subs. And I'll tell you, we have raised the salary for long-term subs. Those teachers that do not want to commit to a year long, but that want to come in while we are in process of securing other teachers. So teachers or people with a bachelor's degree that want to be a substitute, a long-term substitute here in Spring ISD, now can make $175 a day. Teachers or people that want to be long-term subs with some college hours are now up to $145 a day. So we want to not have, a different substitute every single day. We want to secure those that want to invest 6 weeks or so while we process all other teachers and we finish recruiting and staffing all of our vacancies.
I see. Sounds like a plan. Let's talk about health concerns now. What is the COVID protocol for this school year? We had a couple of parents ask, will students and staff have to wear masks?
So no, and our state just put out their guidance on August 1st, an update, and you probably also saw the CDC guidance that was just updated. And so for us in Spring ISD, we leave it up to the parents and their children. If we have children or parents or staff that want to wear a mask, that's their choice. So it is your opportunity to talk to your child and look at your own health concerns at home, but they're not required. It is always recommended. We are following, as I said, the state's guidelines. And so students that have tested positive or staff members that have tested positive, we ask that they report it to our nurse because we continue to report numbers to Harris County Department of Health Services. So students that tested positive will stay home for 5 days from the day that they tested positive and be able to return to campus when they have been at least 24 hours symptom free. So no fever, no medication to reduce fever. They can come back to school. And so again, for us, we ask that families talk about the safety precautionary measures they want their child to take at school, and masks are left up to the families to decide.
COVID is one thing. We have parents also asking about monkeypox. What is the plan, or how will the district handle monkeypox and a possible outbreak?
And so, we learned a lot going through COVID for these past 2 years. And so the same guidelines will apply, and same as if the child came up with measles or came up with the mumps. We ask that all families or employees report that to our nurse. Every campus has a nurse, and of course, central office, we have our director of nursing also. So once that's reported, we report it to health services. The student will be going home with the treatment, and we'll continue to follow all our safety measures. The cleaning of the high touch areas, we know helped during COVID, and we also know that will be also a way to ensure that there's no transmission of monkeypox, let's say from a door handle or a student desk, a teacher desk. So cleaning and double cleaning those high touch areas.
I know we've had a lot of questions about learning loss with COVID, and that leads one parent to ask, what plans are in place to help students succeed on the STAR test?
Oh my goodness. Well, first and foremost, I have to say, yeah, I know parents are so worried about, their students' achievement. I have to tell you, and I have to congratulate all of our teachers and our administrators. This past year, Spring ISD students showed great growth in their STAR performance, showing that we're closing that gap. And so once again, we will continue the same type of deep instruction that we did this past year, specifically around reading and math. For students that are showing that they're lagging behind, we will provide those interventions, extra support during the day, because we also know that many kids, many families cannot leave their children after school. We will continue to do those interventions during the day. But I want parents to know that when our students return back to campus next week and in the following weeks, we will be doing an assessment of all students, elementary, middle, and then all of our 9th grade students, to determine what areas they need additional support. And then that will guide our interventions and additional supports that every student will be able to receive during the school day and school year.
We've covered so much here in the past 30 minutes. I want to get back to basics as we come to a close. How can parents best support their students and set them up for success this school year?
Oh my goodness. I want parents to know that, number one, they are their first teachers, and your home is your first classroom for every child. So in Spring ISD, we truly believe that with the parents, the families, the caregivers, we are partners. So I want parents to take the time and come by the school to meet their child's teacher. And if you can't, go online, send us an email and make that connection. Because once the teachers make the connection with the caregivers, with the parents, with the families, then the student will be taken care of, meaning teachers and parents talking together will be able to address whatever needs the students may have. So don't feel, parents, like you have to stay at home. Remember, before, you weren't coming up to school because of COVID. We've learned to live with COVID. We know how to protect ourselves and protect our children. So come up to the school, feel welcome to visit the school, visit with your child's teacher and your child's principal.
And Chief Culbreath, as we look at another school year with parent safety and security concerns, what do you want to leave them with tonight and going into this new school year?
Trust the education process. We're doing everything we can to keep your kids safe. And as Dr. Hinojosa said, our kids saw a tremendous amount of growth last year, and we expect the longer they're on campus, the more opportunities they have to interact with their peers and our teachers. They're going to grow into the adults that we want them to grow into. So just trust us and allow us to protect your kids while they're away from you, and we'll do our part to keep them safe.
Chief Culbreath, Dr. Hinojosa, thank you so much for your time. We know parents and students certainly appreciate it. And KHOU 11 is proud to provide this platform as Houston's education station. We thank you both and all our best on a safe and productive school year. And folks, be sure to follow KHOU 11 News on Facebook and Twitter for our next back to school Q&A, and text the word school to 713-526-1111 to take the KHOU 11 back to school survey. Once again, Dr. Hinojosa, Chief Culbreath, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck to you. It's been a pleasure. And go Spring Lions.
Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
We'll see everyone later tonight at 10.
Thank you.